You ever have one of those days where you think you're finally winning at this suburban homeowner thing, only for it to blow up in your face because of one neighbor? That's exactly what happened to me. It was one of those Saturdays where the heat pressed down so heavy, the asphalt felt like it was melting. And after weeks of looking at my poor front lawn crunch and crackle under my shoes like cornflakes, my wife put her foot down. "We're getting sprinklers," she said the week before. And in my house, when she says something in that tone, it's not a suggestion, it's a prophecy. So I hired a local company. They spent 2 days digging trenches, laying pipes. And that Saturday was the big reveal. I was standing there in my weekend uniform, black t-shirt, joggers, cold drink in hand, watching as the installer, a young guy named Kevin, hit the switch. Those little sprinkler heads popped up like gophers, and water arced across my lawn in this perfect rhythm. I stood there smiling like an idiot. It was the first time in weeks that the grass didn't look like a desert. It felt like a tiny suburban victory. And then, the screech. Across the street, here comes Lorraine. 60-something stiff blonde bob, the kind of woman who looks like she's been sucking on lemons her whole life. She marches across her lawn. Her grass, by the way, is so green it could glow in the dark, pointing her finger at me like I'd just committed a war crime. "You people move and use up all our resources. Don't care if the wells run dry," she shouted, her voice cracking across the street. I blinked at her, confused. "Ma'am, it's just a sprinkler system," I said calmly. "We're just running a test." But before I could say anything else, one of the sprinklers rotated and caught her dead on shoulder to knees, a full blast. And I swear to you, it was like watching slow-motion comedy. Her gray shirt darkened instantly, water dripping from her hair, her mouth hanging open. For one beautiful second, there was silence. Then came the explosion. "You did that on purpose," she shrieked. "You assaulted me with water, and right there, soaked to the bone." She whipped out her phone and started dialing 911. Kevin, bless his heart, stood there with a wrench in his hand, like he'd stumbled into a live taping of some insane reality show. "Is she for real?" he muttered. "Oh, she's for real," I said, folding my arms. Within minutes, a squad car pulled up. 2 young cops got out, and you know where they went. Straight to her. Not me, not the installer in a bright green uniform with Green Valley sprinklers embroidered on his chest. Straight to Lorraine, who was putting on the performance of a lifetime voice, trembling hands clutching her chest, pointing at her wet shirt like it was a bullet wound. "That man sprayed me deliberately," she wailed. "He's running some kind of illegal plumbing operation." Illegal plumbing. For sprinklers. I could feel my jaw clenching. When the officers finally turned to me, the taller one's tone dripped with suspicion. "Sir, what's going on here?" I gestured to Kevin. "We're installing sprinklers. That's it." Kevin, nervous but brave, added, "It's a standard hookup, officers. We pulled the permit, everything's legal." But they didn't care. They ordered Kevin to shut the system off. They demanded my ID. One officer even insisted on following me inside my own home to get my license, his hand resting casually on his gun like I was some threat. My wife stood at the door, her eyes burning with fury, but I squeezed her arm, begging her not to escalate. When the officers finally left after lecturing me about being a good neighbor, Lorraine smirked from across the street, soaked shirt clinging to her like a badge of honor. And that humiliation, it lit a fire in my wife. That night she paced the kitchen like a caged tiger. "We can't just let this go," she said. "She uses the cops like her personal army. We need to fight back with the truth." The truth came from Kevin. Turns out his dash cam had captured the whole circus, her shouting, her getting sprayed by accident, her fake 911 call the cops, treating me like a criminal. He gave us the footage. My teenage son, who's way more social media savvy than me, crafted the perfect post. Simple, factual. We installed sprinklers. Our neighbor accused us of water theft, called the cops, and lied. Here's the video. He uploaded it to Twitter, Instagram, and the community Facebook group. By the next morning, it had 1 million views. Our quiet neighborhood exploded. Some neighbors apologized in person. Jen next door even brought brownies, saying she felt guilty for not speaking up. Others stayed silent, and that silence said everything. The man 2 houses down, who had been washing his car that day, now avoided eye contact, while Lorraine's buddy, the so-called neighborhood watch guy, suddenly became her bodyguard, arms crossed on his lawn every time we stepped outside. And then the certified letter came. The city water department was opening a formal investigation into our property for illegal water tapping. My stomach dropped as I read it. She had filed a complaint with the city, weaponizing bureaucracy itself. The inspector showed up, clipboard in hand, crawling under my house, timing the water meter, photographing every pipe like I was running some suburban bootleg operation. Eventually, he admitted off the record that it was ridiculous, our system was perfect by the book, but rules forced him to investigate because of her complaint. He handed us paperwork clearing us, but the victory felt hollow. Lorraine was relentless. A week later, the HOA notices started. Violation, excessive irrigation. Violation, overspray onto sidewalk. Violation, standing water after rain. All signed by the HOA secretary. Guess who the secretary was? Lorraine. We tried appealing to the HOA president, but he sent back a cowardly letter about not commenting on inter-neighbor disputes. My wife slammed the notice on the counter one night and said, "That's it. We're lawyering up." We found Ms. Diaz, an attorney specializing in HOA disputes. She listened, took notes, and by the end her eyes were blazing. "This is harassment," she said. "It's also breach of fiduciary duty. She's abusing her position." But here's where it got wild. Ms. Diaz had a private investigator dig into Lorraine's past, and what he found flipped everything. 8 years ago, Lorraine had built an elaborate swimming pool illegally. No permits, no inspections. Worse, she'd paid a shady contractor extra cash to connect it directly into the water line before the city meter. She'd been stealing water for almost a decade. Suddenly it all made sense. Her obsession with everyone else's water usage, her phony conservation crusade, her need to brand us as criminals, it was all projection. She was guilty of the very crime she accused us of. Ms. Diaz drafted a nuclear letter to the HOA's lawyer. Drop every fine, remove Lorraine from the board, and issue a formal apology, or we go public with the evidence of her illegal pool and her water theft. The HOA panicked. Lorraine tried one last desperate move, blasting out a manipulative email to the whole neighborhood, painting herself as a frail volunteer being bullied by newcomers. But the cracks showed. Most people saw through it. The board forced her to resign. All our fines were rescinded. And then the city attorney got involved. The contractor signed a sworn affidavit confirming she paid him to tap into the water before the meter. The city dug up her backyard, found the illegal plumbing, and charged her with felony utility theft and filing false reports. I'll never forget the day we saw her in court. Gone was the smug, self-righteous woman who used to scream at us from across the street. She sat there, pale and trembling, as the prosecutor laid it all out. 8 years of water theft, lies, harassment, the viral video. She pled guilty, sentenced to probation, restitution, counseling, and hit with a protective order barring her from coming near us for 10 years. But Lorraine couldn't help herself. Months later, our cameras caught her at 3 a.m, trying to wrench open the city water main at the curb. She was arrested on the spot, probation revoked, and sent to jail. When the foreclosure sign went up on her once perfect lawn, Jen brought champagne to our porch. "You did it," she said. "You made this street better." And she was right. The new neighbors who bought her house, Mark and Chloe, a young couple with a scruffy little terrier. They invited us to their housewarming barbecue. For the first time in forever, our street felt like a community again, laughter burgers, kids playing not fear and division. Standing there with Mark, beers in hand, watching our sprinklers spin harmlessly across my lawn, he said something that stuck with me. "You guys fought the hard fight so people like us could have peace here. So, thanks." That hit me harder than any settlement check or legal victory. Because he was right. Our nightmare hadn't just been for us, it had changed the whole neighborhood. So now I'll ask you, what do you think? Was it worth it to take the fight public, to drag everything into the light, or should we have just swallowed the fines and kept quiet? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I know people are going to be divided on this one. And if you've ever had a neighbor like Lorraine, tell me your story. I guarantee you're not alone. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more, because trust me, the battles with HOAs and neighborhood tyrants never really end.